Well, good evening. My name is Terry Alford, and welcome to Our Story. Our Story is our way to keep you all informed, featuring guests, unknown facts, treasure stories, and themes that provide insight into the historic Michigan Street African American Heritage Corridor, as well as the east side of Buffalo. Our Story airs at this time every Thursday evening, right here on Waffle Radio Power 96.5 FM. Our Story will introduce, tonight for Our Story, we are glad to introduce two of our guests that have important information to share with our community. Probably they haven't heard this before, but it's really exciting news. Tonight I have Albert Chao and Scott Ruff, and we'll be talking about Robert T. Coles and his beautiful home and what we're looking to try to do over there with his home. So welcome, Scott and Albert. What we always try to do at the beginning of our shows is with our guests is, because we like to tell stories and hear other people's stories, if you could briefly share who you are, briefly share your story with the audience tonight, and then we'll get into the questions of the evening. So why don't we start with you, Scott?
Hello, my name is Scott Ruff, and I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, born and bred. Currently, I live in Long Island, and I work at Pratt Institute, which is an architecture and design school in Brooklyn, New York. And I'm coming back to Buffalo mainly for this project in many ways, but it's also coming back to Buffalo because as an architect and an architecture educator, I have some knowledge that I believe that our community can benefit from, and I definitely see that the Robert T. Coles project that we're going to be talking about here today can play a vital part in that. There's a lot of things that have been happening in Buffalo recently. As everyone knows, Michigan Avenue, the African American Heritage Corridor, that's something that's really on board here. But we also have the AKG. That's a internationally known institution, and the Coles House sits right in between those two things as an intersection. So I don't know, but those are some things that really bring me here back to Buffalo. The place that I love and want to see prosper.
Amen. Good to have you back, Scott. Always good seeing you. So Albert, who are you and what's your story?
My name is Albert Chao. I was born in New York City. I'm a first generation with parents from China. I grew up in Albany and I went to school at Buffalo. I think maybe I'm kind of a meanderer, so I was an artist at some point, then architect. I tried to build buildings in New York City, and I came back to teach at UB. And so one thing that I think of myself as is kind of like a tinkerer, to remain curious, to be engaged. And this is a project that I think sparked my curiosity, but also I think others would want to learn more about. So this has been a beautiful journey, so I'm excited to talk more about it.
Great. Well, we're excited to have you here on the show tonight. Welcome, both of you. And, I had the privilege of being acquainted with Mr. Robert T. Coles and his wife when I was younger, growing up. But for those in the listening audience who may not know who Robert Coles is, who was Robert Coles? Who is he?
Let's see. So there are three things that I want to talk about Robert D. Coles in a nutshell. Would be he was an activist, then an architect, and also an advocate. So activist, he really wanted to the profession of architecture to engage with social issues. An architect, he built buildings. So if you go throughout in the city of Buffalo, all students are actually aware of Robert T. Coles because the alumni arena at UB was actually designed by him. There's a Meriwether Library. He built his thesis project. These are some larger-than-life stories that are kind of fun to tell. Um, and lastly, he was an advocate. So he was the founder of NOMA, National Organization of Minority Architects. He organized. He was a co-founder, so he organized with others. He was an advocate when he opened his practice in 1963. He hired, especially at the time, like very diverse individuals. Not only black architects, but also women, people of color. And so he really, used his position both inside architecture, but also in the community to try to advocate for change.
So Scott, and I know both of you met him and might have been taught by him. What made Mr. Coles so uniquely important to you?
So growing up here in Buffalo and also growing up in the Hamlin Park district, which the house resides in the Hamlin Park district, Robert T. Coles, his home was something that I would pass by and not even know it was there, right? And that's not the only home that I would pass by. I would also pass by one of our partners with this project, the Darwin Martin House that's on Jewett. At that time, it was in disrepair. That project in particular has grown and prospered and become something of a very beautiful campus in the area. And the Coles House, I know we see that can also have a similar type of trajectory. Something very different because it's in a different place and will serve different purposes, but a similar kind of rebirth as a new place for community interaction, things of that nature. But what really brought me to Robert T. Coles and why is he important? As an African American architect, he stands out as one of our past generation's giants, especially in the Western New York area. As Albert has already mentioned, there are a number of projects that exist here in Buffalo, in which we don't even know that he designed. The YMCA, William Emsley.
You went to?
Yes, that I went to as a child. That was another facility. We all go through the Metro Station, Utica Station, which is now named Robert T. Coles Station, which is a tremendous honor. There are not a number of buildings in the country that are named after architects. And so to have his name on a structure he designed, a municipal structure, which again, as Albert was also saying, as an activist, he really wanted to serve the public. So to have that facility in particular to bear his name, really honors him, and we really see the house as possibly being an extension of that.
Right. The other ones I think of are the JFK Center that he designed, and for some of us older folks, I believe it was called the Friendship House in Lackawanna,
Yes.
New York, which is no more, which is a shame. It was. I remember that particular building because a long time ago I used to work at Baker Victory Services and always passed by, that house, and it was also next to a Catholic church that I remember that was over there too in that particular vicinity. And remember all the people you mentioned, the YMCA, and you mentioned all the people that over the many generations that Friendship House was there. Number of people that went there for services. Not just the kids who went there to play or to participate in the athletic leagues and things, but there were social services that was there, and it reminds me of the Michigan Street YMCA, and how that was important in our community back in the day before it was unfortunately raised in 1979, right? And how that for so many people that carried as much reverence as say the Michigan Street Baptist Church. And I mention that because the links in architecture in these places where people commune and come together for whatever reason, it becomes an important element of their lives. And that's why architecture and design and how it connects emotionally to people plays such an integral part of so many people's lives. Can you maybe speak to that? I know you architect types, you're like scientists, mathematics, you technologists and designers and engineers, but for some of us other folks that deal in the social, engagement end of it, we always sort of bring to light the connectivity of engagement as it applies to all those things that relates to technology and science and mathematics. Al, you want to speak to that maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing, the Michigan YMCA, what's interesting is that this is generations of architects, black architects, that have been a part of, in Buffalo. And so, going through the archives at Buff State, you can actually see that he actually met Johnny Brent, the architect for that building.
Right.
And so it doesn't, this is part of a larger collective. So, he is one of our elders / giants, and so we want to have people know him a little bit more. So maybe to dial back to the other question that you had before, I actually never met him.
Right.
But at the same time, I feel like I have because through these strange circumstances, I'm actually at the house right now. And so, like, learning about him slowly by living there, but also tracing his work within the community. Like, we talk about, bricks and mortar and all these, the materials, the roof, but in reality, I think, like, Coles really engaged with people first.
Right.
And really wanted to, think about architecture holistically, not just the building itself, but what can it do, who can it engage with. And so I think one of the missions, or what we're trying to think about, how we can do this, is to build community, as opposed to just knowing how to build a building.
Right. I'm glad you said that because he was really into engagement, and I remember first time I met him, I was in my late teens, early 20s, I think, and I was with some friends, and we happened to be just walking down Humboldt Parkway, and one of them knew Mr. Coles, and he was out gardening, I think, and he pulled us into his home. He was like, "Well, where's your house?" And he marched us down in the back, down a little bit, and that's when I was like marveled at this house, how it was built. Never saw anything like it. First, I never saw a house that was like had its back to the street, if you will. The rear of the house is to the street. That's why it's not so noticeable. But I was struck with the studio, especially how the openness in that. But more importantly, I was really struck with how open and engaging both he and his wife were at the time to us young guys, and how he started really engaging us. Not just so much about the architecture, but he was really very proud of what he built there, and we were really intrigued with that. Could you maybe share with the audience, for those who don't know where this house is specifically, where it is actually located in the community?
Yes, it's located at 321 Humboldt Parkway, which is on the Buffalo's east side. And we study the entire city when we discuss this house, and so its proximity to Main Street,
Right.
And to the west side, right, and to the north even, right. So
Right.
it sits right here at an intersection of the city that is very vital, especially in this contemporary time where we're talking about the 33 and what is the work that's possibly going to happen there in restoring the parkway. Because the house was connected to that history, as Robert Coles did know about the coming of the expressway when he built his home. But he still, and thus he turned back to the expressway to create a kind of haven in the backyard, and kind of remove himself from that experience. But the front of the house, as you said, you're walking down Humboldt Parkway, and there's a shift in the landscape, the way that the landscape is treated in front of the house, and thus it becomes a garden itself, right? And so one of the things that I really like to think about the house for all of the things that Robert Coles and his wife, Sylvia Coles, that they were really interested in mentoring the current and the next generation of architects, but as Albert has already said, of activists,
Yeah.
right? And how a space can be something that engages and supports activism, right? And so that space is not only a house, but it is a studio and house. It's a workspace and a home, and it is a social space.
Yeah.
From our experiences and knowledges and kind of discovery, he entertained quite a bit at the house, and so this is a festive location, and we would like to share that with the public.
Could you quickly maybe share, because I know you gentlemen have been, you and others have been out really now talking about this house and about doing something beyond what is been happening with it other than just a place of residence. Could you maybe talk briefly, Scott, about the community that's around it, the neighborhood that around it, the neighbors that had called themselves neighbors of the Coles, and maybe speak to maybe the excitement if they know what it is you're looking to do there?
Well, we have the Hamlin Park District, which is a historic landmark within the city of Buffalo, and it's at this time predominantly African American community. It's a community which again is, like much of Buffalo, looking to maintain itself,
right,
and see what is the future of the district. This project, as I said before, where it's located, it sits in a way at a gateway to the district, and given the kind of economic and social kind of power that exists right there on the west side, right? It's able to expand that energy, right? To draw people across that line and say, hey, there are cultural things that are happening for the entire city and for the world actually, to come through on the east side of Buffalo. And we have this house and we have this historic district, which again, the housing stock in the Hamlin Park area, dating into the early 1900s, dating back to the early 1900s. Many of those houses are well preserved, but they need to be updated.
Right.
And this project we see as also a way to start talking about that a little bit more. How do we generate the energy to reinvigorate that community in contemporary time?
In Michigan Street, we use the terms anchors, and our anchors include, for instance, Michigan Street Baptist Church, the Reverend J. Edward Nash House and Museum, the Colored Musicians Club and Museum, and Buffalo's Black Radio History Collective. That's important because the anchors serve as not just a destination, but as a means of drawing attention and relevancy to a community that long needs other development too, economic and community development. So I see the Coles House over there as an anchor, if you will, and the potential of the interest and drawing it as a destination for all to see internationally, nationally, what have you, could really help with the improvement and the relevancy of the entire community. Right?
Yes.
So, speaking to that, the National Trust, Al, for Historic Preservation recently recognized the Robert T. Coles Home and Studio. So could you maybe share with the audience what that is and why is this honor so significant?
So this is a larger initiative, National Trust for Historic Preservation, and so they have realized, there are a lot of cultural landmarks built by African American architects that have been lost, or do not have the funds to maintain itself. So this is part of the, a larger initiative. There's many throughout the country, and as we talk to people are like, it's a tragedy, we lost this one. So, this is a moment where not only the Coles House, but, other projects throughout the U.S. And I think it's amazing that, out of the 8 projects, there are 2 Robert T. Cole's projects. The second one is his thesis project, the JFK Recreation Center, headed by the Preservation Buffalo Niagara.
You got it. Preservation
Yeah.
Buffalo Niagara.
And so, that's just a little bit of a glimpse of the importance, that he has within this neighborhood, but also nationally. I think another thing is that, why this is important, we will use this support to kind of, think through maybe the more mundane things, like how do we preserve this thing, when do we bring it back, what paint color, these other things, the roof, for example, how do we rethink that? But I think we're trying to think about how we can not only care for the house, but to care for, and foster the next generation. So how do we bring people in? The studio space that you spoke about, how do we actually, open it up such that, people from the neighborhood, students, other people can actually use the space and get inspired by it, but also create, discussions and dialogue. Right now, my neighbors Ozzy and Vince and Jan and Tati, shout out to them. But they've heard about it, and so we're in the grounding phases. So we want to really get the word out and really have conversations with people. So this is an excellent opportunity.
Well, that's exciting. That's really exciting. Well, I have my one announcement that I always do during my show. So just as a reminder to the listening audience, this coming Saturday, July 27th, beginning at 1 p.m., the Historic Color Museum Musicians Club will host its 20th Queen City Jazz Festival, again at Lafayette Square in downtown Buffalo, which is right in front of the Buffalo Erie County Public Library. Featured musical groups will include Kenny Wade Hawkins and the All-Star Band, David Jonathan and the Inner City Bedlam, Adam Hawley, Camille Thurman and the Darrell Green Quartet, and this year's headliner, Javon Jackson. The festival will happen rain or shine, and is free and open to the public. So yes, it is jazz festival season. We hope to see you this Saturday, beginning at 1 p.m., right at the Lafayette Square. So tonight, again, our guests are with us tonight is Albert Chao and Scott Ruff, and we're talking about the Robert T. Cole's home and studio and other exciting things that's happening over there. As we begin closing out this evening's show, could you, one of you or both of you, maybe talk about some of the exciting things that are happening with the home as we're looking to really secure it as a place where people could come and honor the memory of Mr. Coles and his works, as well as his wife Sylvia. I know there's an opportunity to purchase the house right now. Where are we at with that? And maybe you could speak to the next steps.
All right. So yes, so we are at, as Albert was saying, we're at the beginning stages of the project. But at another level, I would say we're also at stage 2 and 3.
Right.
But we are at a moment where we do need to secure the house financially as a nonprofit. And this is again to assure that this stays a structure that belongs to the community and is not necessarily privatized and closed off. And we're hoping that it can also be a model for other projects, other residential projects that might come from famous architects or something of that nature, that they don't become the kind of museum-like kind of structures, but spaces that new, young people can come into and learn from and be inspired by to grow. And so other phases that we are also working with is filling out the program of the facility, which that includes our meetings, our incessant meetings for just developing advising, trying to figure out how do we create an institution institution that will last, not one that will, just disappear within a year or two or something. I don't know, other part of that programming?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're very open. We're also very, you see Scott and I here, but there's a larger crew of people that we've been drawing upon.
Why don't you speak to that, Albert? The group of people that's coming together that you're pulling together in this effort.
So maybe on a broader scale, because Cole's, he's local Buffalo, but he's also actually very well known internationally, especially in NOMA circles. So, we are part of an organization called Dark Matter University, and it's a BIPOC-led group of educators, advocates that want to work both inside and outside of institutions to engage with change. And this project is one of that, and so shout out to all of them that have been really supportive along the way. The other part of it is to work with local organizations and to really build a conversation back and forth to try to think about what this place can be. And then lastly, I think like one of the initiatives is just to bring people together. Right. So, for example, we were reaching out to many of the architects that have been not only inspired by him, but have been mentored by him. So like this initiative includes, getting their stories, seeing where they're at. And so those are some of the things of trying to pull people together.
If anyone is looking to join or participate or volunteer, how can they best do that?
We're having a website. We're designing a website right now.
Right. So we do expect for our website to be up within the next month.
Yes.
And so you can contact us through that as that comes online. But there's also information my name is Scott Ruff. If you type in Scott Ruff Architecture, you can contact me, Albert Chao.
I teach at the University of Buffalo, so you can contact me there. And also, I think, because we've been having many conversations with you, Terry. Thank you for your time. So I think this is going to be hopefully a nice synergy that we build together, and that we work together. So, it's within the community.
Right. No, and just really quickly, the partners that we are working with currently, as I said before, we're looking at the arts community here in Buffalo. We're working with the African American community here in Buffalo. We're working with the neighborhood community of Hamlin Park. We're reaching out to our political infrastructure of the city, and hopefully, again, within this next month or so, we'll really have a presence, or at least be accessible. As you're asking right now, how do you reach us? We're expecting, if anything, this is the beginning today at Buffalo, is the beginning for our kind of introduction as to how do you reach out to us.
Well, I'm excited. I'm flattered to have been asked to be a part of this great effort. It's definitely a no-brainer. I'm sure once more people start hearing what it is we are looking to try to do with the Robert T. Cole's house and studio, you definitely get some synergy and more people looking and begging to want to join this great effort, because it's an effort of love, as I say, of a great man and his great talent and skills. So you're doing the work right now. You're doing community engagement right now in terms of getting folks now synergized and activated to want to really do something for the public good, as I say. So one day we can all sit back at Robert T. Cole's, sipping whatever it is we're sipping, and celebrating, the great works that up to that point we have achieved and checked off. So again, we thank both Albert Chao and Scott Ruff. This is the end of our show. We'd like to, if you'd like more information, as we always do, we definitely encourage you to contact us directly at 716-322-1002, or simply go to our website, michigandstreetbuffalo.org. And that's the end of our show, so we'll see you next week. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.